This is the story of Claudia, a woman who looked into the abyss of betrayal and found herself not just falling into it, but becoming part of the darkness she never invited. My name is Claudia, and I find myself today in a place where words feel like broken tools, insufficient to explain the wreckage that my life has become in just 72 hours. For 7 years, I was in a relationship with the man I considered the absolute, undeniable love of my life. He wasn't just a partner. He was the father of my children, my constant anchor in every storm, and the only person I believed would never, ever fail me. Our relationship was what many would call a sanctuary, stable, sincere, and built on a foundation of years of shared growth, late-night conversations, and a complete lack of secrets. Or so I believed. I lived in a house built of glass, thinking it was made of steel. But 3 days ago, that entire world, the only world I knew, shattered in a way that I still cannot process, no matter how many times I replay the images in my mind. It was a Tuesday, a day like any other. I came home earlier than usual because a meeting had been canceled, a small, insignificant change in my schedule that ended up rewriting my entire future. My husband usually arrives late, so the house should have been a tomb of silence. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw his truck. And parked right behind it was another car, one that felt familiar in a way that made my stomach do a slow, heavy flip, though I didn't stop to analyze why. I walked to the front door, the keys feeling unusually cold in my hand. The silence inside was heavy, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Then I heard them, low voices, a soft, familiar laughter, and then those unmistakable sounds of intimacy coming from upstairs, from my own bedroom, from the bed where I sleep every night. Without thinking, driven by a raw, primal instinct I didn't know I possessed, I walked up the stairs. Every step felt like I was moving through deep water. I opened the door. In that single heartbeat, the woman I was died. My husband was in our bed with a woman. And it wasn't just a stranger, it was my best friend. The woman who had been at my wedding. The woman who had held my hand when my children were born. The woman who knew every secret, every insecurity, and every dream I had ever whispered. She was my sister by choice. In that moment, I felt a disconnection so profound that it was as if my spirit had physically left my body and was hovering near the ceiling, watching the scene below. I was there, standing on the rug, but I wasn't me anymore. This is where the story turns into a thick, gray fog of confusion. Instead of screaming, instead of throwing them out or setting the house on fire, I stayed. I didn't move. I watched them, and they watched me, frozen in their own guilt. But then, the atmosphere shifted into something twisted and unrecognizable. Perhaps it was the sheer shock of the trauma, or perhaps it was a desperate, subconscious fear that if I walked away, I would lose the two most important people in my life simultaneously, leaving me in a void I couldn't survive. Somehow, I walked closer, and in a state of dissociation I still cannot explain, I ended up becoming a part of what was happening between them. I became a participant in my own betrayal. It wasn't a plan. It wasn't a hidden fantasy. It was a glitch in my soul. It was as if I were a ghost, watching a stranger inhabit my skin and act out a nightmare. To this day, I do not understand why I did it. I wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, the memory of it feeling like a brand on my soul. Now, the aftermath is a nightmare I cannot wake up from. I look in the mirror and I see a stranger, a woman who didn't fight for her dignity, but instead surrendered to the very people who were destroying her. I cannot look at my husband without seeing the jagged edges of a betrayal that I helped seal. I cannot think of my friend without feeling a nausea that starts in my very bones. I don't know what we are now. Are we a tragedy? Are we a mistake? Or did my actions bury our 7-year history under a weight it can never carry? I am lost in a labyrinth of my own making, and I don't know how to take the next step without falling further. What Claudia did is something that many will find impossible to accept. Yet it is a psychological phenomenon that happens more often than we dare to admit in polite society. It makes us deeply uncomfortable because it challenges the narrative of the perfect victim. We like to believe that we would always react with fire, with dignity, and with a clear exit. But the human brain, under the pressure of a double betrayal spouse and best friend, can suffer a total system failure. What we are seeing here isn't a clear sexual desire, it is a state of hysterical bonding or traumatic dissociation. It is a desperate, illogical attempt to reestablish a connection with the sources of your pain, because the alternative, being alone and abandoned by everyone you trust, is too terrifying for the mind to handle in that moment.
However, the fact that she joined them does not erase the initial betrayal. It doesn't make the husband less of a cheater or the friend less of a traitor. It only makes the emotional landscape infinitely more toxic and complicated to navigate. There are now 3 levels of agony here: the husband's infidelity, the friend's ultimate backstabbing, and Claudia's own crushing guilt over her reaction. This 3rd level is the most dangerous because it robs Claudia of her right to be just the victim. She is now drowning in confusion about her own character. Anger is a productive emotion. It gives you a target. But confusion is a prison with no windows. Claudia has to decide if those few minutes of chaos have permanently rewritten the last 7 years of her life. Can trust ever be rebuilt when the boundary wasn't just crossed, but completely demolished by everyone in the room?
Sometimes the hardest thing to face isn't what others do to us, but the capacity for darkness or irrationality we discover within ourselves when we are broken. That discovery can be more terrifying than the infidelity itself. It forces us to ask, who am I really when the world stops making sense? Now, I want to turn this over to you, because this story leaves us with no easy answers. What would you do if you were in Claudia's shoes and you realized you had reacted in a way that betrayed your own values? Would you walk away and try to heal in total isolation? Would you stay and try to untangle the psychological mess with a professional? Or would you consider that a line has been crossed from which there is absolutely no return for any of the 3 people involved? We are here to talk about the truths that make us squirm, and Claudia's story is a mirror into the complexity of the human spirit. Claudia, if you are listening, you are not the only person who has acted out of character during a trauma. The most important thing now isn't that single moment of shock. It's what you decide to do with your dignity from this moment forward.